Crystal Grand.
Okay, a very good morning to everybody and welcome. It's our pleasure as always to be running a credit clinic with our good friends from My DSO Manager. I will allow them to introduce themselves shortly. Today we're going to be talking about, as it says here, what credit teams are facing worldwide and how organizations are adapting. Just before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session, which will be available later. And also, it's we always want these to be very interactive. So please make use of the chat. Any comments, questions, if you agree or disagree, please use the chat, and we'll bring to the audience as many, meaning to the discussion, as many comments as we can. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Here's our agenda. We're going to be looking at governance, fragmented exposure, and all the other items that we have here on the agenda. We'll come to a conclusion, and then we'll have a Q&A, but any comments and questions that are brought up through the course of the next hour, we'll bring them to the fore as we're going along, so we won't wait to the end. Okay. All right then. So
Okay, let's
the
get
next
started,
thing
Mark,
is
right?
to introduce our good friends from My DSO Manager. So introductions, if you would, please. Arthur, would you like to go first?
Wow, I wanted to let Luke go first, but let's go. So, hello everybody. So, Arthur Helles, I'm delighted to be here. So, I've been working in credit management for a decade now, and so right now I'm part of the project management team at MyDSO with the big responsibility to try to support credit leaders who are trying to govern their exposure across maybe a single or multiple entities without, of course, slowing down the business. So in the short version, this is what I can say.
Great to be here, guys. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Stefan. Luke Sculthorpe, Commercial Director, UK and Ireland. I'm relatively seasoned, I think, in the credits management world. Always worked in UK, so know the UK market very, very well. Had differing roles, quite a varied career. Was a credits manager previously, United Utilities, water sector, so quite challenging, certainly. But yeah, great to be here. Thank you very much for having us along.
You're very welcome. Okay, shall we dive straight into the first slide and the first questions then?
Absolutely. So let's talk about realities, right? The structural shift in credit governance.
So yeah, so my question then, perhaps first question to Luke. When organizations operate across multiple entities, countries, and systems, where does the governance first sort of come under pressure?
Yeah, we see the first strain as almost always that loss of the single trusted version of exposure truth. So as organizations scale, particularly through acquisition or international expansion into different markets, credit exposure becomes structurally fragmented across multiple ERP systems. We've all seen businesses with multiple ERPs and ledgers and reporting systems that they all bring. And it's never really designed to operate as one credit architecture. So that's what we're faced with, that's what we see. And what emerges is inconsistency in exposure definition as well. So if you think one system may show, I don't know, accounts receivable only, another might include open orders, and another extends into work in progress or unbilled revenue. It's got a lot of different titles, but essentially those orders that are coming in from the commercial team or customer service, whoever's operating the billing. maybe in a shared service function. So that creates misalignment in how risk is interpreted across the organization in a whole. So alongside this, we typically see duplicated customer master data. That's a regular one, and inconsistencies across payment terms across the portfolio, because payment terms are applied by region or by entity, and local credit controls that persist despite risk clearly sitting at group level. So the result is that credit teams are still operating effectively, sort of in their team and at a local level, but they no longer have a consolidated or reliable view of group exposure. That's what we're seeing anyway. And just also points out sort of credit approvals, so they become fragmented because different entities operate under slightly different credit rules. So those thresholds, the escalation paths. So that all creates variation in how risk is managed across the same customer group. That's what we see anyway.
It's a familiar story from my past as well.
Yeah.
Arthur, then, so at what point does credit management stop being an execution challenge and become a coordination and operating model problem?
Yeah, to follow up on what Luke just mentioned. So what we tend to see is that from the very moment the company decide to scale up and they break through beyond their local, knowledge. Because when you have a simple, environment, the teams are very strong. They can manage a great deal through their experience with their client knowledge, right? So they are very familiar with their customer base. But once you introduce, the notion of multi entities, multi systems, or legacy system, or maybe also region variations, to touch on what Luke has mentioned, you decentralize a lot of decision making, and that model start to come under strain. So at that stage, I feel like it's no longer how your team usually performs, so the strength of your team, they become more on how well the operating model is structured. If it's well structured to actually support the new consistent decision that the management want to first of all visualize and to be able to take. So what we also see is that usually what sits underneath is typically fragmented master data, so unclear customer hierarchy within the different legacy system, and an inconsistency in terms of what is the real process, to the approval process. So that creates multiple versions of truth, to also come back to what Luke has mentioned. So they need to align themselves with the real decision making. So for example, if I take a recent, because I'm like I said, I'm working the project management at MyDSO, and if I take one of the recent implementation, so observe two regional team assessing the customer group, just to talk for a little customer group, but differently, right? So not because of judgment, but because each system define exposure and hierarchy very slightly different, right? So differently. So the collection was strong on both, but decision was scalable or consistent, right? So we need to fix the data model and government framework to have a bigger impact, rather than just pushing, the team, like, yeah, you need to chase more, we need to fix the model, then harmonize it, and then, yeah, we can push the team to chase more.
I think one of the paradoxes of what you've been saying, both of you, and something, kind of why Callisto exists as well, really, is that we're kind of describing sort of multinational shared service centers. A lot of this is where a lot of your work and our work is.
Yeah.
The whole point of shared service centers setting up sort of 30, 40 years ago was to do exactly what you're describing, and hardly any of them actually have. They're still working in silos.
Yeah.
Silos within silos, as in you got each country, France, Germany, Spain, UK, Italy, all sitting under one roof. And then even with that, you've then got, as you were saying, different ways of going about it. The the credit policy or the collection strategy or whatever. It's all, so you just got silos within silos within silos. And yeah, the whole point of the shared service center model was to do completely the opposite of this. Luke, you said in, it's a word we're using a lot now as well, kind of one truth, one,
Yes.
just, you have one credit policy, one credit director. Yeah, I sound a bit like a Queen song here, but but it really is. That's how it should be, shouldn't it? Everything should be reporting up into one place, and you've got a clear vision, a clear strategy. Be interesting to see what our attendees say about this as well. We've got a poll question coming up, and let's see what the feedback is to that.
Exactly. So let's do a reality check here. Very interactive. So I will relaunch the real poll in a second. And the question is, yeah, how confident are you in having a consolidated real-time view of customer exposure across entities and currencies? So if we are lucky, I can relaunch the poll. Maybe Mark, just let me know if it's visible.
Oh, it's visible. Looks
Yeah.
splendid. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Give some more seconds. Pick your choice. And of course, be honest.
If I am allowed to pick two.
So another 3 seconds, then we are at 30 seconds. So I will end the poll and hopefully share the results. Can you see the results? Because from a moderator point of view, it looks a little bit different. So just let me know if the results are visible and maybe comment on them, Luke and Arthur. Is this what you expected?
Definitely. So on my side, definitely on my side. So we have a partial consolidated. So yeah, we don't have a full visibility of the risk that Luke has mentioned. So yeah, definitely we do not have a full corporate view because things are not analyzed the same way on the each locations.
Yeah, there's always work to do, and I think as to pull out what Mark was saying, this siloed, the objective is to get everything under one roof, so to speak. But that doesn't necessarily happen because you almost need a change agent approach, the change management approach. But credit managers and their teams are very resourceful, and they're very good. We see this day in, day out at creating the workarounds. So they almost paint themselves into a corner because they need a system that's going to give them this consolidated view, but they've done so well with creating these workarounds. They do need somebody to show them the full solution, and sometimes it's difficult getting that into them. So yes, so this is certainly very interesting to see from a polling perspective.
Yeah, maybe let's pick this scenario, the fragmented exposure. And Luke, maybe a question to you on this matter is, how do individually sensible credit decisions create this hidden group level risk? Because could be a consequence, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's rarely one bad decision. So it's sort of concentration is normally the result, should we say, of sensible decisions, but without a shared ceiling. So you don't have, there's rules in play. So I suppose why it happens structurally, I suppose, because local teams see local exposure, and that we're showing on screen here. They see the local exposure and approve within their view, but the organisation is leaning to the same economic group or the sort of multiple times. So the governance fix here is group limits and group utilisation. So not to slow sales down, because we're all about creating growth. As the credit team, we're not the no team, but certainly to ensure the organisation chooses risk deliberately rather than discovering it later. That's kind of what we're stating here. This occurs when credit decisions are made, let's say, locally without visibility of the total exposure. So that's that explained.
Maybe let's change the perspective. So more from the implementation side. So it could be a question for Arthur. So from an implementation perspective, where do visibility gaps usually emerge first, Arthur?
One of the biggest gap we see from the implementation standpoint is the availability of the data in between the ERPs. So when you're on the corporate level, so ERPs most of the time are designed to process transactions. I know some today are going also into the chasing the client, but the primary, I would say, the primary function of the ERP most of the time is to design and process transaction, not to provide a full structure analytical view, of the risk performance. So why the data exists, it's often not organized in a way that support, easy decision. And we have realized, I think everyone in the credit management have realized that in some ERPs, there are some outdated, data. So that become more visible when you look at the level of analytical detail. So for example, business often want to segment, by fragments of the word that you use, by customer, activities, or maybe regions or business line, right? So once they want to do that, sometimes the level of tagging and structuring isn't always captured by all the ERPs, and without that, it's difficult to isolate where the issue actually is coming from, right? And where the team should focus their effort. So there's a lot of challenge and inconsistency, I will get there, across the system. So in a multi environment, so the same data can be defined totally different, right? So we have a different hierarchy, maybe a different payment term, just to take that example. So we have two separate ERPs, two separate payment terms, and we do not qualify sometimes the overdue the same. So when you consolidate all that into a single platform, you are not just aggregating the data, but you're also reconciling, different interpretation of reality, what we have touched on in the previous topic. So the real challenge is not just to extract the data from the ERP, but it's to standardize, and structure, all them in the same consistent way, so that it can be readable on the corporate level, and therefore it's easier for managers and for the business to pinpoint where we need to actually act, where interventions are needed.
Yeah, great. So this first scenario was about the fragmented exposure. Let's talk about two other scenarios. One is regarding static risk, and the other is regarding distorted performance.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in looking at this, and as we are now in volatile markets, what are the risks of relying on static credit reviews and lagging indicators? It's something I was going to bring up. I'm interested in this myself. So yeah, so it's to Luke. Luke? Ooh, can anybody hear me? You hear me okay? Perhaps we'll go on to the other one.
I've just lost. Sorry, I just lost the.
Yeah, all right. You lost
the sound. Sorry.
Did you hear my question?
Because if not, because we can talk about the distorted performance maybe first. So a question to Arthur. So when DSO rises, how should organizations separate genuine credit deterioration from dispute-driven distortion? It's a heavy question, I know, but you can answer it for sure.
Yeah.
My dispute.
So I think the important points that you're making here, Stefan, is that not all overdue, are telling the same story. Let's just say it, right? Let's just say that. So when DSO rise, there's often an understanding of to interpret it as worsening the customer risk, or maybe weaker customer performance. So sometimes that's the truth for sure, but also very often the movement, it's been driven by dispute, maybe also by deduction, could be also driven by billing issues that we observe almost everywhere, or internal processes delay rather than just the actual deterioration or willingness for or the ability of our client to pay. So from, at least from my point of view, the answer is always, what I suggest to the clients, always to structure the dispute management. So that, what I mean by that is the need to categorize properly, and assign clearly, track also visibility, and measure separately, all the operation resolution. So we need to have a difference between how we track and measure the dispute with the pure delinquency. So if they are not, I think they will sit inside the same overdue and distort how the organization understand the receivable performance. So what that tends to create is a confusion. So credit teams usually are chasing balance that may actually need operational resolutions, but the finance leader has seen just the DSO, how it's moved, but not always see the reason underneath why the DSO is moving that way. So, and the organization can, not all, but can make few mistake or wrong decision by treating every overdue balance as it reflects on the same risk profile. So I think the good governance here means to separate those clearly. If the balance is delayed because of, I will take a random example, price query, or a missing purchase order, or even a service challenge, you could also take a deduction there. So that should be visible in a different type of issue from just a customer not paying. So for me here, the simple principle is straightforward. It's that if you want the DSO to mean something or to be useful, you have to separate the risk from the friction.
I think one of the subject we haven't brought up yet, but it's kind of underlining everything we're talking about, is the and by the way, what we're discussing here is nothing new, right? It's all these themes of disputes and cash and DSO and everything have been around as long as I've been working, which is a few hundred years now. But I think what is interesting now is that with technology as it is, so whether it's just advanced technology or AI and so on, I think the secret to success of working with My DSO Manager and implementing technologies is to accept the fact that what you want it to do in the first place is to show you your weaknesses, right? Because as you just been saying, Arthur, and Luke, you were putting it very nicely earlier on, factory working in silos, there are going to be a lot of disputes unresolved, maybe even some practices. Like I think, we discussed many times with you guys and others about companies that may have zero overdue, but that's because they're rebilling everything. They put the credits back into current, put the invoices back into current, So I think the first part when you're embarking on these implementations is to say, right, tell us how bad it is, and then we know what we need to fix, right? And all the things we're talking about here, number of disputes, maybe mismatched cash or not at all. And certainly the way things are structured, to have this culture that we want to be one, one source of truth, etc. And I really think that's the critical thing. That's where you start, and just to accept the fact.
Without cutting you, Mark, I usually call it as a mirror. Like whenever we implement, at first the client can really mirror their data, how they look, right? So, and then from there they decide in a discussion with the team and also with the IT on critical information that they would like to see, critical information that needs to evolve. So for them to have better data and take better decisions. So it's usually a mirror of their platform, a mirror of their current business.
And just accept it. This is not great. but we're going to be great. That's the
That's
fun.
the objective. Yeah.
That's the joy of credit control. Wherever I've gone in the past, it's normally been something that's been in disrepair, and the joy of the job is making it better. Yeah. So I guess we'll move on, and I think we have another poll question.
Yeah, but before we start, because it's regarding the risk monitoring frequency, but maybe coming back to Luke regarding, what are the risk of relying on static credit reviews and lagging indicators? Because this is something, we should
thank you.
get your your view on that before even starting the poll, right?
Yeah, no, thank you. Sorry, there was an issue with my tech here. I think to also talk about the dispute contamination piece on this slide. This is something that we do receive in terms of, when we're talking to prospects or possibly existing customer. There is a desire to improve how they're managing their queries, how they're managing their disputes. And when we talk about contamination, this is where the credit function doesn't have a taxonomy. It doesn't have a clear, categorized dispute management piece. So without cleaning it and without separating, you're not really going to understand what's collectible and what's not collectible in your receivables. So we're tending to see sort of weak SLA. That's what we're seeing. But also you want to be able to understand root cause, don't you? So if you're not categorizing and if you're not resolving effectively, you're never going to be able to understand the root cause as to why there's a dispute. So that is what we're seeing a lot. And certainly, once you have everything in one place, or you have a collaborative viewpoint and way of working, that's when dispute is sorted out. I was going to ask, do we also hear that certainly on risk, do we hear credit limits? Are they just reviewed annually? That might be something that we're seeing as well. Obviously that needs to be more frequent.
Yeah, let's start exactly that poll, because it's interesting to see how the audience sees it. So it's the second poll question. It's exactly regarding this risk monitoring frequency. So the question is, how frequently is customer credit risk formally recalibrated? And there are 4 options, from continuously down to only when issues arise. And if I'm lucky, I can even launch this poll. Just let me know if it has launched.
It's there, yeah.
Take your pick and be honest. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure as time goes by, the continuous review will grow and grow over the next few years, because we can now, with advanced technologies, where the traditional way is annually, of course, but over the last few years, that the top option there of continuous is kind of, and perhaps guys, you've seen this operationally from your side. I think gradually that continuous review will grow and grow and grow, and the annual and periodic reviews will go down.
Yeah, any comments from Arthur and Luke regarding the result? I think they are not surprising, right?
Not surprising. It's what we see, all the time, really.
And Mark just made a good resume of the pool before the result even came up.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, that I think the lessons of this decade, shall we say, really since 2020, when we think about what happened in the COVID times, and then the Ukraine war, and now what's happened just in this year, that still referring back to analyzing your clients and your suppliers. Let's not forget suppliers as well, being credit checked as well. that's still done annually. No, that has to be done in real time now. Companies buy and sell each other. Ultimate business owners change frequently. That's why I said I think the shift to continuous monitoring is going to continue to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
because it's possible now, right? There is no technical barrier to do that, right?
Well, yeah, that's it. I suppose you're steering your ship, but are you steering with last year's map? While behavior, is changing, as Mark said, monthly, daily.
Daily.
So that's the point, isn't
it? Your ship analogy is a very good one right now. Right?
The ship, yes.
But
well,
no,
yes,
it is true. It is true. Literally, I mean, what happened in COVID times when all the ships were, trapped in China or the USA or whatever because of COVID, and then we had the Suez Canal issue, and now we've got the Straits of Hormuz issue. And all these things have knock-on effects to supply chain, cost of delivery times, invoice disputes, everything we're talking about, right?
You're going to have delivery disputes. There's going to be timing issues, isn't there? But your customer still wants that shipment. They want those goods.
And then there's the cash flow issue of, it causes a lot more distressed businesses as well because you haven't got that supply chain, right? Particularly the smaller businesses. Yeah. So it's the need for real-time updates is I think every day we're seeing it more and more, and those companies that still kind of, as we've been discussing, stick with lagging indicators. There's going to be a tipping point when they're going to realize that cannot be the case and doesn't have to be the case. Predictive analytics are not rocket science, most of them. Yeah.
Maybe because trade. Yeah. I
Mhm.
don't want to interrupt anyone.
Sorry, carry on.
Because let's say trade credit insurance is still an important topic, right? So maybe let's dive deeper into that. Also, insurance misalignment. So maybe a question to Luke. So where do credit insurance policy and operational decision making most often fall out of alignment? Because I think that's quite common as well, I'm afraid.
The divergence typically occurs in three places or three areas that we see. So firstly, timing. So insurance limits updates are often they're not synchronized with operational systems. So you don't have that sort of real-time feel. So that means that credit teams operate with out-of-date information. And secondly, we see it as scope. So it's where limits are set at that group level. And we've talked about this, haven't we? But while trading occurs at an entry an entity level. And so that creates that hierarchy misalignment. And then the third one is really utilization. So it's making sure that you're understanding cover on each customer. So that insurance intelligence is often under integrated. So it's not really showing up in your daily workflows for your decision making. And that really does reduce your effectiveness, and how you're making these decisions. So it's not real time. Really, can we be actually very effective in terms of all those measures and everything? So that's certainly a key one.
Okay.
Going back to earlier points, before we go on to the poll, I think we're talking about multinational shared service centers and so on. Credit insurance is another great example. And I'm sure you see this frequently, how some entities or countries will have credit insurance, and then the desk next door for the next country selling the same products to the same company, just maybe in a different country, won't, right? And I think just before we go on, I said we've got a great question from Claire asked a little while ago, who's kind of it's in the chat, and the question really is, how do we, what can be done really to overcome all these these fragmentations, whether it's ERP maturities, cultures, et cetera, et cetera. There's so I kind of think really it has to come from the top. If we want this, if we want to strive for this kind of utopian view of having everything together, it has to come right from the top. Yeah, it's a culture thing through the company. And insurance is one of these things. I think insurance is so important right now, more than ever before. So it's not, it doesn't kind of work that the UK does it and France don't, or whatever. I think it's got to be all in, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does, and it needs to be defined, as you say at the top. It has to be in your credit policy, isn't it? That's the one that that's the key map here.
Yeah, I think, and yes, and as we're talking about, sort of striving for this uniformity, which is kind of the theme of all the slides and the discussion. The credit policy is the document that binds it all together, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, of course you have country variations, that's normal, but 90% of what's in a credit policy applies to everybody. Yeah. So it's the same with best practice and so on. It's no matter where you are in the world, no matter what industry, it's the same, right? Make stuff, sell stuff, get paid for stuff, right? And it's how you go about making that happen, really, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And it needs to be if you are operating globally, the credit policy has to include everyone. So it has to be a consolidated approach on that key governance.
Yes, it's not something you should just do for the sake of the auditors or just something to shove in a drawer. It should be a living, breathing document right at the front. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Karen.
So should be the reporting side, right? So the cash and credit reporting. And we do have another poll we really like to launch here. It's exactly regarding this cash and reporting part. So let me show the question first. So what most distorts your cash and credit reporting today? There are 4 options, and the fifth one is if you think of any other, let's say, favorite reason why it distorts your cash and credit reporting today. First one is disputes not systematically tracked. Second, insurance limit not aligned with credit limits. Fragmented ERP reporting is the third one. Weak customer hierarchy mapping. We had that in the beginning. Yeah, but if you have any other things, please put it in the chat. So I will start, if I'm lucky. Where is my polls? Just disappeared, but they will be here in a second. Just say, let's launch the third one. Just let me know, Mark.
Yeah.
If it's
looks splendid.
Yeah, that's up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you select other, please put it in the chat. Yeah, let's take a little longer for this one because it's not that easy to decide, especially when you decide for any other favorite reason.
I mean, there are different realities, so the business.
And maybe already a question to Luke. What would you be your favorite, Luke? Or is there
probably
any
the
other?
third? Probably the third one. C. Yeah, fragmented ERP reporting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the one we see.
How about you?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like I mentioned before, I think that's the biggest challenge.
And I think that sits perfectly in your wheelhouse, doesn't it? Really, that fragmented ERP reporting or just working off different ERP instances. It's something that's baffled me for a long time now. How we're back to the silos again, and I've seen that. I've worked on this myself. We're on SAP, we're on Oracle, we're on this, we're on that. It's organizations like yours that sit over the top of all of these ERP systems. Yeah, and then if you map everything up, you start. It's the first. I would say this is one of the first major steps to getting towards this standardization. You just map all the data from whatever source into My DSO Manager, and then everything is consistent at that point. That's part of
Yes,
the
we consolidate them. Yeah, we
yeah,
consolidate them
yeah.
to have one view, one truth. Yeah.
And I guess that's what you do a lot of the time, right? Is, and so the companies that kind of spend years bringing, SAP into Oracle or vice versa, and then think about sort of external reporting, there's no need for that these days, is there?
Correct. Yeah. We call it the data story problem, Mark. That's how we sort of frame it. It's that spreadsheets, dare I say, spreadsheet 2026, and we're talking about Excel spreadsheets. But yeah, Excel spreadsheets consolidation. It can't really be used as a control mechanism anymore. That's the key. That's the key question. That's the key. The key message out there anyway. Yeah.
And
The
anymore
data story
means
problem.
since at least a decade, okay?
Yeah.
Well, and in and all the things that are on this poll, and indeed the others. I mean, I know I sound like everybody's granddad, but we were dealing with these things in the 1980s. Really, it's a paradox that since that time, really, since Amstrad and Commodores and floppy disks and all that stuff, right to where we are today, in a very short period of time, all right, 40 years or so. But it's still the same thing. Why are disputes not right there, right in front of credit collectors and so on, right? It's can't be difficult, can it, with all these systems that are out there, Salesforce and whatever else, to capture this information and integrate it into like your system so collectors can see and everybody else can see at a glance that, of the 50 invoices on this account, 10 of them are logged as a dispute. Here are the reasons. This is how long they've been outstanding. That shouldn't be difficult now, should it?
Absolutely, no, not at all. Did we get? Sorry, Stefan. Did we get the results on the poll there?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
fragmented ERP
Yeah,
was
fragmented
highest.
was with 60%.
Was it
Yes.
60%? Yeah.
Should I again view the results like
I'm
this?
still looking at it. The disputes not tracked is 20%.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Insurance limits not aligned with credit limits. Yeah, that's always a cracker, isn't it? So I remember in a company I worked at, I actually because most of the business didn't like the idea of insurance at all. And I actually set up two fields in the ERP system. One was what the operations wanted, what the business wanted, and the other one was what the credit insurer were providing on a regular basis, and then showing a comparison between the two, and saying if this company goes bump, this is the amount of bad debt, if you like, the real bad debt. So but invariably the insurer's credit limit was overridden at most times, right? So it's again, it's sort of either if you're going to have credit insurance, use it, or either use it as a guide, but don't just ignore it, right? So,
Absolutely. Maybe it's time for a conclusion already, right? Because 9:15, so
quarter
yeah,
past nine, time is flying
exactly.
by when we're having fun, yeah. So, but yeah, I think we've been sort of all the things we've been talking about. It's um, it is still we're on the threshold of a wonderful opportunity, really, aren't we? And Claire has been asking questions, and I appreciate, sort of how do we deal with credit policies that are fragmented because they could be particularly US centric or, wherever the mothership is, in particular Europe or the US. As we mentioned just now, different ERPs, how to handle disputes and so on. Yeah. So, from your side, guys, as we're obviously we've got where do you seize the opportunity really for businesses to engage with yourselves, and what's the or let me ask you, perhaps I'll start with another question, is really what's driving organizations to come and talk to you?
A real desire, Mark, to change up and improve dispute management. Yes, a real desire to certainly improve cash position, but moreover, it is that ERP consolidated view, the reporting. They'll have ordinarily they'll have quite some basic reporting, but moreover, if they do have reporting, okay, but it's taking somebody a number of days to create that reporting. So if you're then presenting to your CFO, FD, or whoever, you're presenting with retrospective information and insight. You need it now in real time. They're the needs that we uncover, and they're the needs that we're addressing.
And what's driving that?
Yeah.
And are there some Arthur, do you want to add to that?
No, yeah, I just wanted to add that, of course, they want to have a clear, corporate visibility. They want to make sure that the actions are coordinated across all the order to cash chain, right? So, cash is a king. That's a word that you love to use, Mark. So I'm just speaking on that. So yeah, company want to cash in. And as you know, I think you will love it also, Mark, that what we really value in MyDSO is the credit democracy, right? So the approach here is to rebalance the ownership across all the O2C chain, is to move credit management team, the whole credit management team, from only being what we call a control function, from only being a control function to a core contributor of the performance. So by clearly defining again their role, the decision rights that they have. So we want to, we try to empower them most of the time to operate with authority and accountability also. So rather than just relying on I've escalated the matter to different stakeholders and or informal influence. So no, we try to create a level playing field across all the stakeholder, where the credit management team feel at the same level with the sales also, if we want to take them, because they are the one that we are first in contact with. So the sales operation, so the decision are based on share objective, and not just competing between one department to another department. No, we want to make sure that everyone understand that we need to collaborate, because the fact that the cash comes in is good for everyone. It's good for everybody.
But let's make it practical. Maybe one question to both of you, and Luke, I really want to ask you, if someone like a credit leader wants to really strengthen control, and let's put a time frame to that, 6 to 12 months, so not extremely ambitious, where should they start? So what's the, I know it depends on where they are right now, but what's your advice regarding that?
I will have maybe a funny answer. So, well, I would say in the ideal world, I would say deploy my DSO, just like Mark was mentioning.
Cute, yeah.
But so I would start with the foundation, that makes control, sustainable. So the first usually is the customer hierarchy and the master data. So if the organization cannot clearly identify the customer relationship, map their exposure, what Luke has mentioned before, so map their exposure correctly and apply consistent ownership rules, they will struggle. They will struggle on the reliable, governance. And the second thing that's come to mind is to have, standardized process. So we mentioned credit policy, the approval rules, the exception handling, and the dispute also that we have mentioned in the previous question, dispute ownership, all need to be clear enough that team, in different locations, different, regions, do not interpret them, only on their region base. It has to be standardized, that we have the same lexicon across, the whole organization. And the third one will be the workflow, discipline. So what I mean by that is to making sure that, escalation and decisions sit inside, a structured process, rather than just relying heavily on, I've sent the email, and then I will leave the next person, be judgmental on the manual action that need to follow up. No, they need to be a straight, workflow discipline on what we want to do. So what I see also that organizations sometimes underestimate is that they are trying to improve the output, right, before fixing the input. And that's something that we see. And they want, shiny, better dashboards, you see them all shiny, and they want better reporting and better forecasting. But the quality of those outputs is always dependent on the underlying process and the structure of the data that we have. So yeah, by suggestion would be that I will advise credit leaders, to start where the control become repeatable. So you start with the basics, right? So let's start with the basics where the control becomes repeatable. Start with the structure, ownership, consistency, and therefore everything will become more dependable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is probably the biggest takeaway of all of these technology-driven discussions is, as you said, get the basics right first, right? Because otherwise, you put it very nicely, Arthur. But the old kind of maxim, garbage in, garbage out, that stands the test of time, doesn't it? And you get to have, as you said, nice shiny dashboards, and as we were discussing earlier, at the minute with a lot of organizations, it just shows their weak processes and procedures, right? That's okay. At least you know where you are, right? And then you've got the smart ones, they say, okay, this isn't great. What do we need to do to fix it, right? The others will just try and hide, right? And so, oh, I don't want to see this. This is bad news. Got to do some work, right? So I know
And
you.
even if they, Mark, because we always or quite often see that, let's say, teams are fighting the symptoms, right, rather than dealing with the root cause. And we discussed that in this session as well. Figure out what's the root cause for the symptom, and don't fight the symptom, but be brave enough to show the symptom, because that helps to push you to find the root cause, right?
There's many factors to that, but you're right. There's many factors to that. How one of the biggest problems and challenges is that companies have got so obsessed with just their quarterly EBITDA. It's just let's make it look good at the end of the quarter. Never mind the root cause, the fixes, the rest of it. We've just got to look good at the end of March, June, September, and December, right? And that's as those of you who know me, you'll hear me say that to the point of distraction frequently, but it really is, it's got to be a long-term plan as well, right? You can't fix it in 3 months, right? As you alluded to in your question. What do you want to do over 6, 9, 12, 18 months? Not like just how can we make it look good in June, right? That's a false economy, isn't it? I know you guys want to make some reference to the this slide, right? As we're and some of your clients here, which I think are good stories to share.
Yes, yeah. We've got over 2,500 clients, Mark, operating in 95 plus countries globally. But yes, some of these names that you see here are our key clients, and certainly have a presence across the globe, in UK as well, my territory, and across into Central Europe and the rest of the world. So yes, Schneider Electric, key clients, and Rexel as well, and yes, public sector. We are not just the private sector. We also have a public sector footprint with, as you see, NHS. So yes, we are absolutely global, and doing great things in terms of making that credit team the standout team in those organizations, and the democratic, as Arthur mentioned, the democratic piece is definitely one that we're pushing on with, the making it democracy, and getting the credit team on that high profile stage, in whatever company, whatever sector, whatever business environment they're in.
And the organizations like the NHS kind of encapsulates all the complexities we've been talking about, right? I mean, everybody has their own, but the NHS and others, complex within, they're kind of a world apart, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
Good stuff. Okay.
Okay, so
Yes.
let's thank Luke and Arthur for sharing lots of insight from realities, expectations, and so on. Thank you.
Pleasure was mine.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much. And if we haven't answered all of the questions, would we be able to get to some of the participants and
Most
answer the
definitely,
questions?
yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, the recording will be shared in the not too distant future as well. We'll just edit it a little bit so the recording will be available. Yes, absolutely. People can either contact you directly or via ourselves. We'd be happy to do that. And as we go into the summing up, of course, the next opportunity to meet you guys in person with us anyway is in our conference shortly.
Absolutely.
And there it is. Wow, just like
It's reading days now.
yes, getting scarily close. 3 weeks.
I think if we take a look on, because that's part of our website here, and if you select the conference on, you will see the clock is ticking. It's just 19 days, right?
And I don't know who that guy in that picture is, but he looks familiar. But yeah,
the guy is
conference.
familiar, though.
Looking good.
So you can meet the MyDSO team. So we're delighted they're going to be joining us in Budapest in, as it says there, 19 days from now. So you can meet them in person, ask all your questions. Yeah, lots coming up. So looking forward to seeing you guys very soon. So okay.
I think there will be, let's say, a world premiere. I'm not, let's say, saying too much, but I think Eddie will be there, right? But this is still top secret, so I need to.
Yeah, we're keeping this. This is our sort of low introduction, but yes, we're Cali is Callisto's AI venture into AI, our knowledge hub, where we are bringing huge amount of data into one place. So we'll be talking about that more certainly at conference and other times as well. So yeah,
maybe there will be some more hints next week already, and yeah, let's see. It's still it's only 19 days, right?
Yes, scarily so.
There was one ask regarding we had one special credit espresso. We called it the Credit Control Cafe, and like it's saying here, that could be your name, right? So if you're interested in joining us for kind of a espresso type or double espresso type interview, please let us know, or we will invite you, and maybe we'll see each other in the nearly future then, right? That's it from my side, Mark, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. A really interesting discussion. Always a pleasure to work with you guys. And anyone wants to get in touch, you know where we are. Technology and MyDSO Manager, many more stories to tell as we go forward. So I think thank you, everybody. Take care, stay safe, God bless, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thanks, Stefan.
Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.